Hello and welcome to part 12 of the Azure Administrator Exam Practice Question Series on Tech with Jaspal. We are going to cover 22 more questions in this part of the series, friends. As always, I'll provide you in-depth explanation for each question and validate options while looking at Microsoft documentation in most cases. And we will also try to do things in Azure portal where possible. I'm sure this video is packed with lots of learning even outside Azure Administrator exam, so try to go through the complete video without skipping anything, as that will prepare you to answer many more variations of these questions. Friends, many of you have asked whether you can get PDF without taking channel membership. Then yes, we do have one-time payment options as well. You can reach out to us on same email ID, which is devopshub2023@gmail.com, so we can walk you through those options. I'll also stress that taking membership doesn't bind you to our channel, and you can cancel membership whenever you think there is no more support needed from us. Now, without further ado, let's get into the questions for this part of the series. Question number 218. You have an Azure subscription. You plan to use Azure Resource Manager templates to deploy 50 Azure virtual machines that will be part of the same availability set. You need to ensure that as many virtual machines as possible are available if the fabric fails or during servicing. How should you configure the template? In front of you is a template in which you can see the type denotes that availability sets are being created, and the location of the availability set is East US. In the properties, it is defined that platform fault domain count and platform form update counts are to be determined. So based on this, the question is, how many platform fault domain count and how many platform update domain count should you choose? And friends, the correct answers here are 3 fault domain count and 20 update domain count. So friends, let's understand the reason behind choosing platform fault domain count as 3 and platform update domain count as 20 as the correct answer in this case. How do availability sets work? Each virtual machine in your availability set is assigned an update domain and a fault domain by the underlying Azure platform. Each availability set can be configured with up to 3 fault domains and 20 update domains. What this means is, in the options, in the options of the platform fault domain count, you had options as 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So automatically you will rule out option 4. And similarly for platform update domain count, you had options as 10, 20, 25, 30, 40, 45. And you can only have a maximum of 20 update domains. So that means you will rule out the last 4 options and you are left with only 10 and 20. Now, these configurations can't be changed once the availability set has been created. Update domains indicate group of virtual machines and underlying physical hardware that can be rebooted at the same time. When more than 5 virtual machines are configured within an availability set with 5 update domains, the 6th virtual machine is placed into the same update domain as the first virtual machine, the 7th in the same update domain as the second virtual machine, and so on. The order of update domains being rebooted may not proceed sequentially during planned maintenance, but only one update domain is rebooted at a time. A rebooted update domain is given 30 minutes to recover before maintenance is initiated on a different update domain. So friends, this is the reason we have chosen 20 update domains as the correct answer, because that's the maximum that can be configured in our case, because we have 50 virtual machines. If we had less virtual machines, obviously, if virtual machines were less than 20, then you couldn't have chosen platform update domain count as 20. So make a note that if the number of virtual machines changes in the question, then your answer to this question will also change. Now let's understand the reason behind choosing 3 fault domains as the correct answer. Fault domains define the group of virtual machines that share a common power source and network switch. By default, the virtual machines configured within your availability set are separated across up to 3 fault domains. While placing your virtual machine in an availability set doesn't protect your application from operating system or application-specific failures, it does limit the impact of potential physical hardware failures, network outages, or power interruptions. So friends, platform fault domain count has been chosen as 3 because that's the maximum value available. And since you are dealing with 50 virtual machines, so you can split them in the 3 fault domains. For example, if the question had just 2 virtual machines, so you couldn't have chosen 3 fault domain count as the correct answer. So again, if the count of virtual machines changes, then your fault domain count and update domain count also changes. So whenever you have such questions, please try to see carefully that how many virtual machines you are dealing with. Question number 219. You have an app named app1 that is installed on 2 Azure virtual machines named VM1 and VM2. Connections to app1 are managed by using an Azure load balancer. The effective network security configuration for VM2 are shown in the following exhibit. In front of you is the VM2 networking exhibit, and you can see there are some inbound port rules defined. Whenever you have such questions, you need to be aware that the inbound port rules or any port rules are evaluated in the order of their priority. That means the rule which has 100 priority will be evaluated first, and the rule which has 65,500 priority in this case will be evaluated at the end. So the rule with priority 100 says allow 131.107.100.50 on port 443. Any connectivity that is coming from source with IP address 131.107.100.50 on port 443 is allowed. Similarly, the rule 200, which is a deny rule, says any connectivity from any source on port 443 is denied. So because rule with priority 100 is going to be evaluated first, only the connectivity from 131.107.100.50 on port 443 will be allowed, rest will be denied. Now let's look at next part of this question. You discover that connections to app1 from 131.107.100.50 over TCP for port 443 fail. You verify that the load balancer rules are configured correctly. You need to ensure that connections to app1 can be established successfully from 131.107.100.50 over TCP port 443. Can see in the solution they have said you modify the priority of the allow underscore 131.107.100.50 inbound security rule. Does this solution meet the goal? You need to tell whether it is right or wrong. So as I explained, this rule is already having priority of 100, which means it is at the highest priority. Changing the priority of this rule will not make any difference because it is already a allow rule with the highest priority. So friends, this solution is incorrect. What you need to do here is start the VM, and how I know that it is from the attached network interface option, which is enabled and highlighted on your screen now. If the VM was on, then it should have been showing as detached network option as enabled, which is currently grayed out. So basically, there is nothing to do with firewall rules in this case because the rules are set in the correct priority. It's just that the VM is in off state and you need to power on the VM. So there can be a variation to this question in the solution. They might have power on the virtual machine VM2, and that would have been the correct solution in this case. Next question. You have an Azure subscription that contains the virtual network shown in the following table. You have 3 virtual networks with the name of VNet1, VNet2, and VNet3. VNet1 is hosted in West Europe location. VNet2 is hosted in Southeast Asia location. VNet3 is hosted in South Central US location. The subscription contains the subnets shown in the following table. You have 4 subnets with the name of subnet 1, subnet 2, subnet 3, and subnet 4. Subnet 1 is connected to VNet 1, subnet 2 is connected to VNet 2, subnet 3 is connected to VNet 3, and subnet 4 is connected to VNet 4. The service endpoints for subnet 2 and subnet 3 are Microsoft.storage, and subnet 1 and subnet 4 do not have any service endpoint. The subscription contains the storage accounts shown in the following table. There are 3 storage accounts with the name of storage 1, which is in West Europe location and is of type storage version 2. And then you have another storage account with the name of storage 2, which is hosted in South Central US location with a kind of blob storage. Then the third storage, which is storage 3, is hosted in Southeast Asia location and is of kind storage V2. You create a service endpoint policy named policy 1 in the South Central US Azure region to allow connectivity to all the storage accounts in the subscription. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true, otherwise select no. And the first statement is policy 1 can be applied to subnet 3. And friends, this statement is correct. Both policy 1 and subnet 3 are in same region, which is South Central US. That's why you can apply policy 1 to subnet 3. Friends, these are some of the limitations that have been taken into consideration when marking statement 1 as the correct. You can only deploy service endpoint policies on virtual networks deployed through the Azure Resource Manager deployment model. Virtual networks must be in the same region as the service endpoint policy. This is what marked the first statement as the correct answer. You can only apply service endpoint policy on a subnet if service endpoints are configured for the Azure services listed in the policy. You can't use service endpoint policies for traffic from your on-premise network to Azure services. Azure managed services other than Azure SQL managed instance don't currently support endpoint policies. This limitation includes managed services deployed into shared subnets such as Azure Batch, Microsoft Entra Domain Services, Azure Application Gateway, Azure VPN Gateway, Azure Firewall, or into dedicated subnets such as Azure App Service Environment, Azure Redis Cache, Azure API Management, Classic Management Services. Classic storage accounts are not supported in endpoint policies. Policies deny access to all classic storage accounts by default. If your application needs access to Azure Resource Manager and classic storage accounts, endpoint policies shouldn't be used for this traffic. So the second statement is only storage 1 and storage 2 can be accessed from VNet 2. Now, if you notice, question says policy has been created, but doesn't say it has been applied. And if no policies are attached to a subnet with endpoints, you can access all storage accounts in the service. Therefore, this statement is incorrect because you will be able to access storage 3 as well from VNet 2. So as always, let's read through the configuration section so you know what you need to answer when there are variations of this question in the exam. You can configure the endpoint policies to restrict virtual network traffic to specific Azure storage accounts. Endpoint policy is configured on a subnet in a virtual network. Service endpoints for Azure storage should be enabled on the subnet to apply the policy. Endpoint policy allows you to add specific Azure storage accounts to allow list using the resource ID format. You can restrict access to all storage accounts in a subscription, all storage accounts in a resource group, an individual storage account by listing the corresponding Azure Resource Manager resource ID. This covers traffic to Blob, tables, queues, files, and Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. By default, if no policies are attached to a subnet with endpoints, you can access all storage accounts in the service. Once a policy is configured on that subnet, only the resources specified in the policy can be accessed from compute instances in that subnet. Access to all other storage accounts is denied. So friends, this is the reason we have chosen that the statement 2 is incorrect, because even though question mentions that the policy was created, but it never said that the policy was applied. Now, the next configuration thing is when service endpoint policies are applied on a subnet, the Azure Storage Service Endpoint scope gets upgraded from regional to global. This process means that all the traffic to Azure Storage is secured over service endpoint thereafter. The service endpoint policies are also applicable globally. Any storage accounts that are not explicitly allowed are denied access. You can apply multiple policies to a subnet. When multiple policies are applied to the subnet, virtual network traffic to resources specified across any of these policies are allowed. Access to all other service resources not specified in any of the policies are denied. Only storage account using the Azure resource model can be specified in the endpoint policy. Classic storage accounts don't support Azure service endpoint policies. This is what we read in the limitation section as well. RAGRS secondary access is automatically allowed if the primary account is listed. This is a good thing to know. If you get any questions around RAGRS and then service endpoint policy, so you know what is the scenario that will be presented. Storage accounts can be in the same or a different subscription or Microsoft Entra tenant as the virtual network. So friends, the third statement is only storage 2 can be accessed from VNet 3. For the very same reason that policy 1 is not applied, this statement is also incorrect. Storage 1, storage 2 and storage 3 all will be accessible from VNet 3. Question number 221. You have an Azure subscription that contains the identities shown in the following table. You have 4 identities, of which 2 are users with the name of user 1 and user 2, and 2 are managed identity with the name of principal 1 and principal 2. User 2 is the member of group 1 and principal 2 is also the member of group 1. User 1, principal 1 and group 1 are assigned the monitoring reader role. An action group named AZ-1 has the email Azure Resource Manager role notification type and is configured to email the monitoring reader role. You create an alert rule named alert1 that uses AZ-1. AZ-1 is the action group. You need to identify who will receive an email notification when alert1 is triggered. Who should you identify? Your options are user 1 and principal 1 only, user 1, user 2, principal 1 and principal 2, user 1 only, user 1 and user 2 only. And friends, the correct answer here is option D, user 1 and user 2 only. So friends, to understand the reason behind choosing option D as the correct answer, let's first understand monitoring reader role, which was being assigned in this case. People assigned the monitoring reader role can view all monitoring data in a subscription, but cannot modify any resources or edit any settings related to monitoring resources. This role is appropriate for users in an organization such as support or operational engineers who need to view monitoring dashboards in Azure portal, view alert rules defined in Azure alerts, query Azure Monitor metrics by using the Azure Monitor REST API, PowerShell commandlets, or cross-platform CLI. Query the activity log by using the portal, Azure Monitor REST API, PowerShell commandlets, or cross-platform CLI. View the diagnostic settings for a resource. View the log profile for a subscription. View auto-scale settings. View alert activity and settings. Search log analytics workspace data, including usage data for the workspaces. Retrieve the table schemas in a log analytics workspace. Retrieve and execute log queries in a log analytics workspace. Access application insights data. So friends, now you know what is monitoring reader role, and you should also know that it is an inbuilt subscription role and not an Azure or Entra ID role that you have created. Let's now understand the next part of the requirement, that how Azure Resource Manager sends the emails, which has helped us in answering this question. So this is the email Azure Resource Manager document. When you use Azure Resource Manager for email notifications, you can send email to the members of a subscription role. This is critical to answering this question. You can send email to the members of a subscription role. Email is only sent to Microsoft Entra ID user members of the role. Email is not sent to Microsoft Entra groups or service principals. So for these very reasons which are highlighted on your screen, principal 2 is not going to get the email. Neither principal 1 is going to get email because they are managed identities and not the users. And since user 2 is part of group 1, so it is also going to get the email notification. That is the reason we have chosen option D as the correct answer, where user 1 and user 2 are only going to get the email notification. Question number 222. You have an Azure subscription that contains the identities shown in the following table. You have two apps with the name of App 1 and App 2. App 1 is using Microsoft ASP.NET Web Framework and App 2 is using Microsoft ASP.NET Core Framework. And when it comes to hosting environment, App 1 is hosted on an on-premise physical server that runs Windows Server 2019 and has IAS configured, whereas App 2 is hosted on an Azure virtual machine that runs Windows Server 2019 and has IAS configured. You need to monitor the performance and usage of the apps by using Azure Application Insights. The solution must minimize modifications to the application code. What should you do on each app? And for App 1, the options are install the Log Analytics agent, install the Azure Monitor agent, use the Application Insights SDK, install the Application Insight agent. And friends, the correct answer here is install the Application Insights agent. Let's look at the second part of this question, and which is App 2, and your options are also same here. And friends, the answer will also be same, that is install the Application Insight agent. Application Insight agent can be used to monitor the performance and usage of both your on-premise physical servers and your Azure virtual machine as well, which means you can install the Application Insight agents on an on-premise server which is connected to Azure, and you can also install it on a Azure virtual machine. Question number 223. You have a computer named computer 1 that has a point-to-site VPN connection to an Azure virtual network named VNet1. The point-to-site connection uses a self-signed certificate. From Azure, you download and install the VPN client configuration package on a computer named computer 2. You need to ensure that you can establish a point-to-site VPN connection to VNet1 from computer 2. And the solution you choose is you join computer 2 to Azure Active Directory. Does the solution meet the goal? You need to tell whether yes or no. Joining computer 2 to Azure Active Directory or Entra ID does not address the issue of establishing a point-to-site VPN connection to VNet1 from computer 2. To ensure that you can establish a point-to-site VPN connection to VNet1 from computer 2, you need to import or install the self-signed certificate used for the point-to-site VPN connection on computer 2. Simply joining computer 2 to Azure AD won't automatically handle the VPN connection setup. Friends, this is question number 224. You create an Azure VM named VM1 that runs Windows Server 2019. VM1 is configured as shown in the exhibit. In front of you is an exhibit where you can see the status of the VM is stopped deallocated. Location is East US and Zone 1 is the availability zone that is configured. Operating system is Windows and the size is standard DS1v2. You can see it has a public IP address assigned and the DNS name is not configured. You need to enable desired state configuration for VM1. What should you do first? Connect to VM1, start VM1, capture a snapshot of VM1, configure a DNS name for VM1. And friends, you will have to start the VM1 first. You could see that the status was stopped deallocated, and if you need to enable desired state configuration on any VM, it should be powered on. Now on your screen is a link. If you would like to understand more about desired state configuration, go to this link and read about it. You have an Azure subscription that contains the virtual networks shown in the following table. You have 4 virtual networks with the name of VNet1, VNet2, VNet3, and VNet4, of which VNet1 and VNet4 are using West US Azure region, and VNet2 and VNet3 are using Central US Azure region. VNet1 and VNet2 are hosted in resource group RG1, and VNet3 and VNet4 are hosted in resource group RG2. You need to deploy an Azure firewall named AF1 to RG1 in the West US Azure region. To which virtual networks can you deploy AF1? Your options are all the 4 virtual networks, virtual network 1 and virtual network 2 only, virtual network 1, virtual network 1, 2, and 4 only, and virtual network 1 and 4 only. And friends, the correct answer here is option C, virtual network 1 only. The firewall, virtual network, and the public IP address all must be in the same Azure resource group and same region. So friends, to validate the answer, what I have done here is I have created 2 resource groups with the name of RG1 and RG2. And as per the question statement, RG1 has 2 virtual networks created by the name of VNet1 and VNet2. And similarly, based on the question, VNet1 is using West US location and VNet2 is using Central US location. Now, if we go and look at RG2, I have created 2 virtual networks here as well by the name of VNet3 and VNet4. VNet3 is again using Central US location and VNet4 is using West US location. Now, what we will do is we will try to create a firewall and see what all options are available. Now, as per the description or as per the statement in the question, it says to create the firewall in RG1. So I'll use any of the virtual networks for RG1 and try to create a firewall. For instance, let's use VNet1, which is the correct answer in our case, and see what are the options we are seeing. So we will go to the firewall option in the VNet1 and click here to add a new firewall. So as you can see, resource group is by default selected as RG1 and region by default is coming as Southeast Asia, because that's the region where I am currently. But we are not really concerned about that. What we are concerned about is, let's see what are options that are available when we try to choose a virtual network. So we are not going to create a new virtual network. We are going to use an existing virtual network. And as soon as I select use existing, now you have a drop down to select virtual networks. And here there is no option available. And the reason is because we have not changed the region yet. So let's change the region to Central US first. So once the region has been changed to Central US, let's see what are options available. Now you can see there are 2 options here available, which are RG1 and RG2, which is VNet2 and VNet3. So basically the firewall that you are trying to create can only use the virtual networks VNet2 and VNet3. Okay, so let's try to select VNet2 here, and now you get a message here that the virtual network must have a subnet named Azure Firewall subnet, which can be ignored because I have just created the virtual networks and not configured. So that means you can use virtual network 2 only if you are using Central US location. Now let's try to select virtual network 3 here, and you can see the Azure firewall cannot be used with from a different resource group. I think Azure has a typo here. This error is not very well formed, but what they are trying to convey here is the resource group is different than the resource group which is being used here while creating the firewall. That is why you cannot have different resource groups. Now let's choose the location as West US based on what was asked in the question. So now we have selected West US location and we are into RG1 resource group. These are the two key things that were mentioned. And probably let's name the firewall as AF1. It doesn't really matter because we are not trying to create the firewall, but we will choose the options. Now, if we go to virtual networks, you can see the options that we are getting is VNet 1 and VNet 4. And that's the reason why we are getting VNet 1 and VNet 4, because we are trying to create a Azure firewall in West US now, and VNet 1 and VNet 4 are hosted in West US location. Now let's first choose VNet 4. And if we choose VNet 4, we get the same error. Azure firewall cannot be used with from a different resource group. Again, a formatting error from Azure, but this error is self-explanatory that you cannot use a resource, basically a virtual network, which is not in the same resource group as the firewall. So let's now try to choose VNet 1, and you can see we now get the error that the virtual network must have a subnet named Azure Firewall subnet, which is a logical error because I have not created the subnet, but this pretty much explains or confirms that if you are trying to create a Azure firewall, your VNet should be in the same region and they should also be in the same resource group. Friends, if you still have any doubts in this question on why VNet 1 has been chosen as the correct answer, please do not forget to post them in the comment section. This is question number 226. You have an Azure App Service plan named ASP1. CPU usage for ASP1 is shown in the following exhibit. In front of you is an exhibit and you can see it is almost running at 100% CPU utilization. That's the first thing to note. And at the top, you can see local time last 30 days, automatic 6 hours. So basically the cycle that is used for refreshing is 6 hours. Let's now look at the next part of the question. Use the drop-down menus to select the answer choice that completes each statement based on the information presented in the graphic. The average CPU percentage is calculated once, 4 times, 6 times, or 24 times per day. And friends, at the top right-hand side of the screenshot, you saw that the refresh was happening every 6 hours. And if we divide 24 by 6, that means the refresh is happening 4 times per day. Now, the next part of the question is ASP1 must be, your options are scaled up, scaled down, scaled out to optimize CPU usage. And the correct answer here is scaled up because the CPU utilization was constantly at 100%. That's what we saw in the graph. That's why the ASP1 must be scaled up to optimize CPU usage. Question number 227. You purchase a new Azure subscription named Subscription 1. You create a virtual machine named VM1 in Subscription 1. VM1 is not protected by Azure Backup. You need to protect VM1 by using Azure Backup. Backups must be created at 1 and stored for 30 days. What should you do? And the first statement is location in which to store the backups. Your options are a Blob container, a file share, a recovery services vault, a storage account. And friends, the correct answer here is a recovery services vault. And next part of the question is the object to use to configure the protection for VM1. And your options are a backup policy, a batch job, a batch schedule, a recovery plan. And the correct answer here would be a backup policy. Friends, if you have any doubts in this question, then please post them in the comment section. We have covered similar questions in previous parts of the series, so I'm not going to go in the detailed explanation, but if you are still having any doubts, please post them in the comment section. This is question number 228. You have a computer named Computer 1 that has a point-to-site VPN connection to an Azure virtual network named VNet 1. The point-to-site connection uses a self-signed certificate From Azure, you download and install the VPN client configuration package on a computer named Computer 2. You need to ensure that you can establish a point-to-site VPN connection to VNet 1 from Computer 2. And the solution you give is you export the client certificate from Computer 1 and install the certificate on Computer 2. Does this meet the goal? You need to tell whether this is right or wrong. This is the correct solution, friends. You will need to export the client certificate from Computer 1 and install the certificate on Computer 2. Friends, we have had multiple variations of this question in the series till now. So you should know that in Azure Administrator exam, you get these type of questions where you are presented with a statement, a requirement, and then you are presented with multiple solutions. And you need to choose which of them is the right solution. Always remember, a question can have multiple solutions. So it is not mandatory that if you are getting 5 versions of this question, then only one solution will be correct and 4 will always be wrong. There can be a situation where 2 solutions are correct and 3 are wrong. Question number 229. You have an Azure subscription that contains 100 virtual machines. You regularly create and delete virtual machines. You need to identify unattached disks that can be deleted. What should you do? Your options are: from Azure Cost Management, view cost analysis. From Azure Advisor, modify the advisor configuration. From Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer, view the account management properties. From Azure Cost Management, view advisor recommendations. And friends, the correct answer here is option D, from Azure Cost Management, view advisor recommendations. So friends, now I am on Microsoft documentation regarding cost recommendations from Azure Advisor. Let's go through the recommendations which are specific to compute, as one of those requirements or recommendations is what helps us answer the question. So the first recommendation related to compute that is provided by Azure Advisor is standard SSD disks billing caps. Customers running high input-output workloads in standard HDDs can upgrade to standard SSDs and benefit from better performance and SLA, and now experience a limit on the maximum number of build transactions. The second one is underutilized disks identified. You have disks that are utilized less than 10%, right size to save cost. Now, this is the third one, which is what has helped us in answering the question. You have disks that have not been attached to a VM for more than 30 days. Evaluate if you still need the disk. And the description that you see in this recommendation is: we have observed that you have disks that haven't been attached to a VM for more than 30 days. Evaluate if you still need the disks. If you decide to delete the disks, recovery is not possible. We recommend that you create a snapshot before deletion or ensure the data in the disk is no longer required. Now, if you go to this document or this link, then it will tell you more about how to find the disks that are unattached and how to delete them. The next one is right size or shut down underutilized virtual machine scale sets. We have analyzed the usage pattern of your virtual machine scale sets over the past 7 days and identified virtual machine scale sets with low usage. While certain scenarios can result in low utilization by design, you can often save money by managing the size and the number of virtual machine scale sets. The next one is use virtual machines with ephemeral OS disk enabled to save cost and get better performance. With ephemeral OS disks, you get these benefits: save on storage cost for OS disk, get lower read-write latency to OS disks, faster VM reimage operation by resetting OS to its original state. It is preferable to use ephemeral OS disks for short-lived IaaS, which is infrastructure as a service VMs, or VMs with stateless workloads. So friends, these are the recommendations that are provided by Azure Advisor when it comes to compute. Obviously, this document has many more recommendations that are provided by Azure Advisor when it comes to cost optimization. So you should be across these recommendations, because there can be multiple variations of this question. And if you get any such question, then if you have gone through this link, you will be able to answer that. Question number 230 of the series. You have the Azure virtual machines shown in the following table. You have 4 virtual machines with the name of VM1, VM2, VM3, VM4. VM1 is connected to virtual network VNet1, VM2 is connected to virtual network VNet2, and VM3 and VM4 are connected to virtual network VNet3. Their IP addresses are also on your screen. VNet1, VNet2, and VNet3 are peered. VM4 has a DNS server that is authoritative for a zone named contoso.com and contains the records shown in the following table. You have 2 records with the name of server 1 and server 2. Both of them are type A records. Server 1 is pointing to 131.107.3.3 and server 2 is pointing to 131.107.3.4. The virtual networks are configured to use the DNS server shown in the following table. You have basically 3 virtual networks, which you already know. Virtual network 1 is using the default Azure provided DNS server. Virtual network 2 is using a custom, and virtual network 3 is also using a custom DNS server. Let's now look at the next part of the question. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true, otherwise select no. And the first statement is, from VM1, server1.contoso.com resolves to 131.107.3.3. Friends, VM1 is connected to VNet1, which has default Azure provided DNS server and is linked to Azure private DNS server contoso.com, which is 131.107.3.3 and 131.107.3.4 DNS servers. That means VM1 has 2 DNS servers for resolving. DNS servers for VNet1 server 1.contoso.com is 131.107.3.3 and for server 2.contoso.com is 131.107.3.4, making this statement as correct. And the next statement is, from VM2, server 1.contoso.com resolves to 131.107.3.3, and this statement is incorrect. VM2 belongs to VNet2, which has custom DNS of 192.168.0.5, which is IP of VM4. And it does not take the default Azure specified DNS. So VM2 will resolve from VM4 as server 1.contoso.com, which is 131.107.2.3, and server 2.contoso.com, which is 131.107.2.4. Question number 231. You have an Azure subscription that contains a storage account. The account stores website data. You need to ensure that inbound user traffic uses the Microsoft point of presence, POP, closest to user's location. What should you configure? And your options are private endpoints, Azure firewall rules, routing preference, load balancing. And the correct answer here is option C, routing preference. So friends, now I am on official Microsoft documentation which explains the differences between Microsoft Global Network and Internet routing. By default, client outside of the Azure environment access your storage account over the Microsoft Global Network. The Microsoft Global Network is optimized for low latency path selection to deliver premium network performance with high reliability. Both inbound and outbound traffic are routed through the point of presence that is closest to the client. This default routing configuration ensures that traffic to and from your storage account traverses over the Microsoft global network for the bulk of its path, maximizing network performance. This is the reason, friends, we have chosen option C, which is routing performance, as the correct answer. You can change the routing configuration for your storage account so that both inbound and outbound traffic are routed to and from clients outside of the Azure environment through the POP closest to the storage account. This route minimizes the traversal of your traffic over the Microsoft global network, handing it off the transit ISP at the earliest opportunity. Utilizing this routing configuration lowers networking cost. You have an Azure subscription that contains an Azure virtual machine named VM1. VM1 runs a financial reporting app named App1 that does not support multiple active instances. At the end of each month, CPU usage for VM1 peaks when App1 runs. You need to create a scheduled runbook to increase the processor performance of VM1 at the end of each month. What task should you include in the runbook? And your options are: add the Azure performance diagnostic agent to VM1, modify the VM size property of VM1, add VM1 to a scale set, increase the vCPU quota for the subscription, add a desired state configuration extension to VM1. And friends, the correct answer here is option B, modify the VM size property of VM1. Let's head to official Microsoft documentation to understand the reason behind choosing option B as the correct choice here. So friends, based on the question statement, the CPU usage for VM1 peaks when App1 runs. And the option that we chose was modify the VM size property of VM1. Now in front of you is the official Microsoft documentation specifying the different type of virtual machine sizes available in Azure. If you scroll through this table, there are certain sizes which are for general purpose. Then there are compute optimized, memory optimized, storage optimized, GPU, and high performance compute. Now, based on your requirement, you can choose which type of size you want for your virtual machine. Now, in this case, because the App1 basically is running into a CPU crunch, so you could use a compute optimized VM here. And based on its description, you can see high CPU to memory ratio, good for medium traffic web servers, network appliances, batch processes, and application servers. And the sizes that are available are F, FS, FSV2, and FX. So that is the reason we have chosen option B to modify the VM size and use a compute optimized size, which is best suited for this requirement. Now, if the question was talking about of memory crunch, then maybe you would have used a memory optimized VM. Or if it was related to storage, then you would have used a storage optimized, but ultimately the answer still remains same. You need to modify the VM size property of VM1. Question number 233. You have an Azure subscription that contains a storage account named Storage1 in the North Europe Azure region. You need to ensure that when Blob data is added to Storage1, a secondary copy is created in the East US region. The solution must minimize administrative effort. What should you configure? And your options are operational backup, object replication, geo-redundant storage, a lifecycle management rule. And friends, the correct answer here is option B, object replication. You might be tempted to choose GRS here, friends, but it doesn't give you option to choose the destination region location. Rather, the copy in GRS happens to the dedicated region pair of the source region. Let's, as always, head to Azure portal to try and validate this scenario. So friends, to mimic the scenario given in the question, what I have done is I have already created two storage accounts. One is with the name of source storage account 1989, which is in North Europe region as per the question statement. Then I have also created a storage account which is named as destination storage 1989, which is in East US region. This is to replicate the blobs from source storage account to destination storage account while ensuring the location that are given in the question remains same. So in the source storage account, what I have done is I have created a container named source storage, which you will just see. So the container name is source container, and in that container, there is nothing uploaded at this point. Similarly, if we go to the destination storage, then I have also created a container there because this is the destination container where the blobs will get copied, and it is with the name of destination container. Now to set up object replication, what we will do is we will go to the storage account. Under the object replication option, you can see I have already set up replication. Basically what I've done is, while setting up the replication, I have chosen that the replication needs to happen to destination storage 1989 storage account, and the blobs that are getting copied are from source container to the destination container in the destination storage account. Now what we will do is, to test this theory, what we are going to do is, now we are going to go to the container and the source container and try to upload a blob and see whether it shows up in the destination container or not. At the moment, we have already verified that the source and destination both are empty. Let's click on upload and select a blob. So I'm just going to upload an image here, which should be uploaded in few seconds. And the upload has got finished. You can see the JPG file is there in the source container. It is using the hot access tier, and the blob type is blob. Let's now head to destination container and see whether the blob has got copied or not. So what we'll do is, again, we'll go into the containers. We will choose the destination container, and there should be the image that should show up pretty soon. So when you copy the when you upload the blob in the source container, it takes few seconds for the sync to happen. So just give it some time, and the blob should show up in the destination container. So it took almost 3 minutes for the blob to show up in the destination container, but we can see the same image is now showing up in the destination container. This is how we have used object replication to replicate the objects in the desired destinations as mentioned in the question. I hope you now understand why GRS is not the right answer here, because you do not get to choose in which location you want to replicate your objects to. Now let's try one more scenario here. Basically, let's try to delete the blob from the source container and see whether it gets deleted from the destination container as well. So we just click delete, and the blob has got deleted. Let's now head to the destination container and see whether it gets deleted from the destination container as well or not, because we are talking about replication here. So the sync should be maintained and the state should be same on both source and destination. So this has not got deleted till now from here, because obviously you would have already seen that the sync took a bit of time when the file was uploaded. So same thing is going to happen when it is going to get deleted. So let's give it few minutes and then we will hit to try refresh. So friends, it took almost 1.5 minutes for it to be deleted from the destination container, but the bottom line is it has got deleted and source and destination are in sync. So yeah, that's all I wanted to show in this demo. Let's now head back to the questions. This is question number 234. You have an Azure subscription that contains a virtual machine named VM1 and an Azure function named app1. You need to create an alert rule that will run app1 if VM1 stops. What should you create for the alert rule? Your options are an application security group, a security group that has dynamic device membership, an action group, an application group. And friends, the correct answer here is option C, an action group. An action group is a collection of actions that are triggered by an Azure alert. In this scenario, you need to create an alert rule that will run app1 if VM1 stops. And for this purpose, you need to create an action group. An action group defines the set of actions to be taken when an alert is triggered, such as running an Azure function, sending an email, or creating an Azure ticket. By creating an action group and associating it with the alert rule, you can automate the process of running app1 if VM1 stops without the need of manual intervention. This helps ensure that critical systems such as app1 are automatically activated when necessary, improving the overall reliability and availability of your Azure services. Question number 235. You have an Azure subscription that contains an Azure Stream Analytics job named Job1. You need to monitor input events for Job1 to identify the number of events that were not processed. Which metric should you use? Your options are out of order events, output events, late input events, backlogged input events. And the correct answer here is option D, backlogged input events. So friends, these are some of the metrics available for Stream Analytics, and the first one is backlogged input events, which was the correct answer for our use case, and the definition of it is number of input events that are backlogged. A non-zero value for this metric implies that your job can't keep up with the number of incoming events. If this value is slowly increasing or is consistently non-zero, you should scale out your job. And then the other metrics available are data conversion errors, CPU utilization, which is currently in preview. Then you have early input events. Then you have failed function requests, function events, function requests, input deserialization errors, input event bytes, input events, input sources received, late input events, which was one of our options, then out of order events, which was again one of our options, and then output events, runtime errors, SU memory percentage utilization, and watermark delay. Folks, if you are interested in knowing more about the metrics that are available from Stream Analytics, then I would highly recommend you to go through this article and understand what all metrics are available, as there can be different variations of this question and you will be well prepared to answer those. Question number 236. You have an Azure subscription named Sub1 that contains the resources shown in the following table. You have two resources with the name of RG1 and Action1. RG1 is a resource group type and Action1 is an action group that sends an email message to admin1@contoso.com. Now Sub1, which is your subscription, contains the following alert rule. Its name is alert1. Its scope is all resource group in Sub1 and it includes all future resources as well. Condition is all administrative operations and action is action1. Now Sub1 contains the following alert processing rule. Its name is rule 1. Again, scope is Sub1. Rule type is suppress notifications and apply the rule is set to on a specified time, and the time frame is August 10, 2022 to August 13, 2022. Friends, before looking at next part of the question, let's understand the difference between alert rule and alert processing rule, as that is very important to answer this question. Alert processing rules allow you to apply processing on fired alerts. Alert processing rules are different from alert rules. Alert rules generate new alerts, while alert processing rules modify the fired alerts as they are being fired. You can use alert processing rules to add action groups or remove or suppress action groups from your fired alerts. You can apply alert processing rules to different resource scopes from a single resource or to an entire subscription, as long as they are within the same subscription as the alert processing rule. You can also use them to apply various filters or have the rule work on a predefined schedule. Some common use cases for alert processing rules are described here. Basically, suppress notifications during planned maintenance. This is what we are trying to do in our use case, where we are suppressing alerts between August 10, 2022 to August 13, 2022. Friends, now that we know what is the difference between alert rule and alert processing rule, let's look at next part of this question. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true, otherwise select no. And the first statement is, if you create a resource group in Sub1 on August 11th, 2022, alert 1 is listed in the Azure portal. This statement is correct. Even though August 11, 2022 falls between the time range where the alerts are suppressed, but the statement is talking about alert 1 is listed in the Azure portal. Alert will still be listed, but it is suppressed. What does it mean? The email notification that was supposed to be sent to admin1@contoso.com will not be sent. Now, the second statement is, if you create a resource group in sub1 on August 12, 2022, an email message is sent to admin1@contoso.com. This statement is incorrect because here we are talking about an alert being sent, and August 12 lies between August 11 and August 13. So this alert will be suppressed and there will be no email that will be generated. Let's look at third statement. If you add a tag to RG1 on August 15, 2022, an email message is sent to admin1@contoso.com. 15th August falls outside the time range for which alerts are suppressed. So yes, an email will be sent to admin1@contoso.com in this case. Folks, if you still have any doubts in all the three statements, why they were chosen as right or wrong, please post them in the comment section and I'll try to address them as soon as possible. Question number 237. You have an Azure subscription that has traffic analytics configured. You deploy a new virtual machine named VM1 that has the following settings. Region is East US, virtual network is VNet1, NIC security group, which is network security group, is NSG1. You need to monitor VM1 traffic by using traffic analytics. Which settings should you configure? Your options are diagnostic settings from VM1, NSG flow logs for NSG1, diagnostic settings for NSG1, insights for VM1. And the correct answer here is option B, NSG flow logs for NSG1. NSG flow logs are a feature of Azure Network Watcher that allows logging of information about IP traffic flowing through a network security group. This data can be used by traffic analytics to analyze network traffic in your environment. By enabling NSG flow logs for NSG1, the network security group associated with the VM1, you would be able to monitor the traffic of VM1 using traffic analytics. Friends, let's look at question number 238. You have an Azure subscription that contains a virtual machine scale set. The scale set contains 4 instances that have the following configurations. Operating system is Windows Server 2019. Size is standard _D1 _V2. You run the get-azvm-sss commandlet as shown in the following exhibit. Now there are 2 commands that are being executed. One is more focused around virtual machine profile, OS profile, and the second one is more focused around upgrade policy. Let's look at next part of this question. Use the drop-down menus to select the answer choice that completes each statement based on the information presented in the graphic which you saw on the previous screen. When an administrator changes the virtual machine size, the size will be changed on up to how many virtual machines simultaneously, and your options are 0, 1, 2, and 4. Friends, if you resize the scale set, all the VMs get resized at once, and this virtual machine scale set has 4 instances, so 4 is the correct answer choice here. Both the commandlet outputs given in the question are irrelevant to this statement. Now the next statement is, when a new build of the Windows Server 2019 image is released, the new build will be deployed to up to how many virtual machines simultaneously? Again, your options are 0, 1, 2, and 4. Now friends, from the second commandlet output, you can see that the OS image upgrades are set to automatic. And to minimize the application downtime, upgrades take place in batches with no more than 20% of a scale set upgrading at the same time. That means 20% of 4 is 0.8, so a maximum of 1 VM will be updated with the new build at a time. Friends, before we look at question number 239, if you are someone who is short on time and wants to get access to the PDF version of these questions, then do not forget to take the gold membership of the channel and email me at devopshub2023@gmail.com requesting the PDF copy. Question number 239. You plan to create an Azure storage account named Storage1 that will contain a file share named Share1. You need to ensure that Share1 can support SMB multi-channel. The solution must minimize costs. How should you configure storage? And your options are premium performance with locally redundant storage, standard performance with zone redundant storage, premium performance with geo-redundant storage, standard performance with locally redundant storage. And folks, the correct answer here is option A, premium performance with locally redundant storage. Let's head to Azure documentation to understand the reasons behind choosing this option as the correct choice. So friends, this is the documentation to improve SMB Azure file share performance. And now we are going to go through a table which is on your screen right now. And in the table, you can see for SMB, only one of the option is supported, which says premium file shares, file storage, and then the redundancy is LRS or ZRS. Now, based on this, there are two options that could be correct in our use case. The first one is premium performance with locally redundant storage, and the third one, which is option C, premium performance with geo-redundant storage. But we have chosen option A, premium performance with locally redundant storage as the correct choice, because the question also mentions that the solution must minimize cost, and LRS is cheaper than GRS. That is the reason we have ruled out option C and chosen option A as the correct answer. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this video, friends. If you haven't looked at other parts of the series yet, then explore them as well to get the maximum benefit from our content. Link to the playlist is available in the description section of this video. And folks, if you have passed the Azure Administrator exam using our content, then feel free to tag us in your LinkedIn celebration posts and share our content in your network as well. Stay tuned for more parts in our Azure Administrator exam practice question series.